This is Audible. From the series and Volume 1 of The Unseen City, Salazar'S Touch. Rose and the Rose by Kevin B. Rose and the Rose. February in Ottawa had always been notoriously cold. Minus 30-degree nights followed by what could only be described as a deceptive reprieve. A seemingly pleasant day with temperatures merely in the minus 20s, only to plunge once more into stretches of frigid days and nights. So brutal that the mere thought of stepping outside induced instant regret, followed by mild resentment toward whatever errand necessitated venturing into the frozen streets of the capital. On this particularly bitter Tuesday morning, Rose found herself irritated at the prospect of leaving her apartment. She paced restlessly, prolonged her morning coffee ritual, dawdled with her makeup and hair, and even took the unusual step of preparing a somewhat elaborate breakfast. Eggs Benedict. Rose never made breakfast unless there was a man in bed she aimed to impress. But that morning, she had woken up alone. Her frustration was compounded by exhaustion from sleepless nights, courtesy of the freedom convoy that had recently descended upon the city. The COVID-19 pandemic had taken its toll on everyone. For nearly 2 years, Rose had been confined to her downtown Ottawa apartment, save for occasional trips to the grocery store and pharmacy. Yet, like many, she had glimpsed the end of the isolation, an end to both the imposed and self-imposed quarantine dictated by the once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. She had resolved to finally get a life, as her co-workers so often urged. They knew she was dating but showed little interest in meeting the man, almost as if they doubted his longevity in her life, or perhaps his worthiness. After all, Rose was their Rose, 35, childless, indifferent to ambition, and far more adept at spending money than at the job that funded her lifestyle. Yet despite these quirks, she was undeniably captivating. A beauty seemingly lifted from Greek mythology, with slender features, flowing blonde hair, and mesmerizing emerald green eyes. Her laugh was as sweet as a child's, yet carried the allure of a practiced seductress. Rose worked as a dental hygienist, securing a permanent position in a private practice through well-connected dental school friends. Though her job title remained unchanged for 8 years, her responsibilities grew, though so did the generous annual cash bonuses her employers bestowed upon her. Officially, she earned $47,000, but last year alone, her bosses discreetly handed her an additional $100,000. She had little concern for financial prudence or ethical qualms about circumventing government oversight. Her accountant, one of her employers, routinely advised her to save for rainy days, but never pressed too hard, likely wary of inviting too many questions. Her peculiar good fortune extended beyond her career. Born an orphan, Rose had led an inexplicably privileged life. The orphanage she grew up in housed no more than 8 children at a time, often fewer, and functioned more like an exclusive boarding school. The best teachers in town tutored them under strict non-disclosure agreements. The staff were well paid and content. The mansion they called home was vast, pristine, and isolated, with an expansive yard stretching for miles and a private playground nestled behind the estate. Rose had never lacked anything. Outings were permitted, but always supervised. The caretakers were kind, the meals abundant. Her only real curiosity was what life might be like beyond the orphanage's carefully curated existence. As she grew older, she discovered the institution was sustained by an anonymous donor, whose generosity remained an enigma. When the time came to leave, she was sent into the world with a final gift, a fully funded college scholarship covering tuition, housing, meals, and a regular stipend. She chose dentistry, Not out of passion, but out of practicality. College was a whirlwind, and she discovered an unexpected thrill: gambling. It started as a drinking game at a dull party, but quickly spiraled into an obsession. By 35, she was a dental hygienist by day and an infamous gambler by night. Or any hour, really. Navigating love proved trickier. Her first college boyfriend was a disaster. The second was no better. She swore off relationships until she met Giorgio. They crossed paths at the Lac Limy Casino in Gatineau, where Rose lost her salary, savings, and then some in an underground poker game. The night was a financial catastrophe, but a personal victory. Giorgio was leaning against the bar, sipping his drink, dressed in a crisp suit. His dark, wavy hair framed a chiseled jaw, his beard meticulously shaped. His sharp eyes scanned the casino floor with quiet intensity. "You're drooling," Sandra, a casino acquaintance, teased. "Dude, you scared me." Rose laughed. "But seriously, look at that man." Sandra smirked. "I see him. And I agree. That is one fine specimen. If you don't go talk to him, I will. I can't just walk up to him." "Of course you can. I'll be your wing woman. Let's go." Before Rose could protest, Sandra dragged her over. "Hello? I'm Sandra, and this is my friend Rose. Mind if we join you?" "Of course not." "I'd never turn away two beautiful women," Giorgio replied, setting his glass down. Rose was entranced. Giorgio, in turn, saw her as a trophy, refined enough to introduce to his family, alluring enough to parade before his friends and associates. And just like that, their turbulent relationship began. Their first months were a blur of casino nights, road trips to Montreal and Mont-Tremblant, endless drinks and reckless gambling. Giorgio, a baker by day, had no means to afford such extravagance. He leaned on Rose's seemingly bottomless bank account, rationalizing that she would spend the money anyway. Despite his working-class profession, Giorgio cultivated an air of grandeur. He never allowed himself to be seen in public looking anything less than impeccable. By night, he donned tailored suits, tied his hair back like a young Steven Seagal, and carried himself with the bravado of a mobster. Though he wasn't actually in the Italian mafia, he hinted at connections, name-dropping just enough to keep the illusion alive. In truth, he was merely the nephew of a low-ranking Ottawa mafia associate, but his stolen confidence made for a compelling act. At first, Rose was intoxicated by his charm. He showered her with attention, and she clung to the high. But as months passed, reality crept in. He was terrible at gambling, and so was she. In less than a year, she had burned through $45,000. The relationship strained. Giorgio, sensing his control, convinced Rose that he should manage her money. She hesitated, but relented, irritated, yet unwilling to sever the ties. Her breaking point came unexpectedly, a work dinner at Giorgio's bakery. It was his chance to flaunt her, his so-called sportfish. But as she prepared for the event, a deep, gnawing unease settled in, an unease that whispered the truth she had long avoided. Giorgio was a mistake, and she was running out of excuses to stay. "Do you want to wear that dress?" Giorgio asked, adjusting the lapels of his suit, eerily similar to the one he wore the first time they met. "What's wrong with it?" Rose spun in place, the floral dress flowing to her shins. She had been saving it for a special occasion, and Giorgio's office event seemed perfect. "You look drab in it." The smile faded from Rose's lips. It wasn't the first time Giorgio had criticized her taste or undermined her decisions. It drove her mad, yet she still listened, convincing herself he had her best interests at heart. "But when I bought it, The ladies at the store said it looked lovely. They'd say anything to make a sale, babe. Cold commissions. Fine then, I'll pick something else. She pulled the dress over her head, tossing it onto the bed before walking to her closet in her underwear. Make sure you show me what you pick. I need to gauge your sense of style. You always seem to disappoint in that area, he added with a mix of indifference and authority. Rose sighed, but said nothing. The seed of resentment inside her sprouted. She rummaged through her closet until she found a black dress. Are you serious? That dress makes you look... Look how? She snapped. Never mind. I'll just pick for you. He yanked the dress from her hands, tossing it across the room before rummaging through her wardrobe. When he found a short green satin dress, he threw it at her. What? She said, her frustration mounting. Wear that. Babe, I left this dress at the back of my wardrobe for a reason. It's too revealing, and I'm not comfortable in it. She dropped it onto the bed. So, you're uncomfortable looking sexy? Relax, babe. You'll look amazing. Oh my God, Giorgio. Are you even listening? It shows too much skin. You love to complain. Look at me. He smirked as he straightened his suit. People expect my girlfriend to be at least half as attractive as I am. You're average, so it helps to accentuate your assets. Now put it on and let's go. We're already late. And wear red lipstick. You look good in that. Rose watched as he strode out of the room. She glanced at the green dress, wondering why she hadn't thrown it away. She had a habit of holding on to things she disliked, and now Giorgio had become one of them. She put on the dress and was immediately reminded why she had abandoned it. The thin straps, plunging neckline and short hemline left her feeling exposed. Changing crossed her mind, but the thought of Giorgio's reaction crushed that impulse. Instead, she grabbed a long coat, draped it over herself, and trudged downstairs. Giorgio grinned as she descended. It was always like this. She always gave in. He could treat her better, but he knew that keeping her beneath him made her want him more. That was the reality of dating in their generation. A generation plagued by undiagnosed Stockholm syndrome. The party was a miserable affair for Rose. Giorgio had all but instructed her to smile and stay silent. She obliged, holding a practiced expression until her face ached. The moment her smile faltered, sweet Giorgio reminded her to put it back on. After the event, they attended an after-party, which was less refined, louder music, heavier drinking, and unchecked debauchery. It didn't take long for Giorgio to find the gambling corner. Rose's addiction surfaced, and with Giorgio's ever-encouraging influence, the night ended with her emptying her account once again. Later that night, Rose confronted him. I didn't like how tonight went. You know I've been trying to quit gambling, but you led me there. Are you serious? Giorgio scoffed. You're blaming me for your weak will. You could have walked away. It's not just that. You humiliated me in front of your colleagues. Her voice cracked, tears threatening to fall. Not now, Rose. I'm exhausted, a little drunk, and I just want to sleep. Fuck you, Giorgio. Why are you so difficult? I wasn't sure if you'd understand what we were talking about at the event. Better to be seen as a dumb, hot blonde than open your mouth and confirm it. He smirked. Really? Drop me off at home. I don't want to be with you anymore. And with that, the cracks in their relationship widened. Giorgio did as she asked, offering no apology. He cared for Rose in his own way, but he always put himself first. Back in her apartment, she collapsed onto her bed, still dressed, makeup smeared across her face. She checked her phone for the 9th time. No message, no call. The absence of an apology both angered and saddened her. Her phone buzzed. She scrambled to grab it. Just a notification. Frustration turned to self-loathing. She had no friends left. Giorgio had absorbed them all into his circle. There was no one to confide in. Lost in her thoughts, she drifted into a restless sleep. When she woke, a sharp pain shot through her neck. She struggled to move, her body stiff and sore. After several minutes, she managed to sit up, rubbing her swollen eyes. Smudges of mascara and eyeliner darkened her palms. Another miserable day awaited her. Rose dragged herself to the bathroom, washed her face, and brushed her teeth. With nothing planned for the day, the silence of her apartment was suffocating. It reminded her of the orphanage, except back then, she at least had companionship. But soon, her solitude would end. Her new fish tank had arrived, and she had plans to pick up a pair of koi fish. Excitement replaced the dull ache in her chest. She had almost abandoned the idea, but memories of a girl from the orphanage with a goldfish convinced her otherwise. Fish were quiet, didn't wreck furniture, and didn't need to be chased around. At the pet shop, she browsed before collecting her order, but when the attendant handed her the bag, her excitement turned to confusion. "I ordered silver and black koi, not a pink one, and this one looks half dead." "Oh no, miss. The pink koi is extremely rare and valuable. She's just sluggish from the tight space. You'll love her." She? I think so. Rose debated arguing but didn't want to linger in the cold. Fine. But if it dies, I'm getting a replacement for free. The fish looked lifeless, its pink scales dull. "Good choice," the attendant said before walking away. As she left, she bumped into a man in a black suit. "I'm sorry," she murmured. "No problem," he replied, watching her disappear. Inside, he approached the counter. "Hey, Mark." "Sir." "She bought it. Good. Here's your payment." A thick wad of bills hit the counter. Mark grinned. "My lips are sealed." Rose set up her fish tank at home, filling it with water, white pebbles, and aquatic plants. She placed her new pets inside. Then the water churned. The fish thrashed violently, their scales dissolving like the water had turned acidic. Within moments, they disintegrated entirely, leaving the tank clear, except for a pink crystal at the bottom. Horrified, Rose dumped the water in the sink. The stone tumbled out. She rinsed it repeatedly before picking it up. It was rough, unpolished, almost like a diamond. Still shaken, she placed it beside the sink and collapsed onto the couch, adrenaline pulsing through her veins. She couldn't quite wrap her head around what had just happened, but before she could spiral further, a sudden knock echoed through the house. Her heart pounded against her chest at the abrupt interruption. Carefully, she placed the stone on the sink. Opening the door, she found herself face to face with Pastor Frank, the priest who had served as the spiritual guide and teacher at her orphanage. He had been her counselor during her struggles, the one she turned to when life felt unbearable, until she replaced him with Giorgio. These days, rather than seeking Pastor Frank's wisdom, she found herself frequenting the Lac Limi casino with Giorgio whenever her life felt particularly bleak. "Please come in," Rose said, stepping aside to allow him entry. "I wanted to check on you. Something in my spirit told me you might need me," he said with a warm smile, his eyes scanning the apartment with quiet scrutiny. "Pastor Frank, you always seem to know when something's wrong with me. Please, have a seat." She gestured toward the couch. He sat with a rigid posture, his back barely touching the sofa. So, tell me, what's troubling you? Would you like something to drink first? She asked. No, I'm fine. All right then. This is perfect timing because something strange just happened a few minutes ago. What do you mean? Are you all right? Pastor Frank asked, his voice carrying a forced surprise. Something Rose failed to notice as she hurried to explain. I bought 2 koi fish today, but as I poured them into the tank, the strangest thing happened. I don't know if I hallucinated, but they melted, just dissolved and disappeared in the water. It was unbelievable, Uncle Frank. There were bubbles and everything. And then, this was all that was left. She rushed to the kitchen, returning with the pink crystal-like gem, about the size of a strawberry, and placed it in Pastor Frank's hand. He took the stone, but barely glanced at it, before chuckling the way a father does when humouring a child's wild imagination. Rosie, are you sure stress isn't getting to you? Living things don't just dissolve in water. You think I don't know that? She snapped, instantly regretting her tone. I'm sorry, Pastor Frank. But I know what I saw, and I'm getting tired of people telling me otherwise. After the fish disappeared, that crystal was left in the tank. She pointed at the stone in his hand. The pastor remained silent for a moment before saying, Let me take a proper look at it. Pastor Frank wanted to smile at the worry in Rose's eyes. He had known her since she was a child. After she insisted on leaving the orphanage, he had been tasked with keeping an eye on her from a distance, ensuring her safety, though Rose had no idea. He held the stone up to the light, feigning shock. How could this be? I've never seen anything like this before. He put on his best performance. Right? What do you think I should do? Rose asked, marvelling at the stone in his hand. You're right. This is a diamond, and a rare one at that. It's possible the fish were used to smuggle it, but something must have gone wrong. He spoke without hesitation. But they were alive. Barely, but alive, Rose insisted, moving closer to Pastor Frank and the gem. A possessive feeling crept over her. Well, that doesn't matter now. The important thing is what happens next. This could be worth a fortune. You should consider selling it. I know a trusted appraiser who can verify its authenticity and value. What do you think? Rose stared at him, stunned. She had expected him to tell her to get rid of it. That had been her first instinct. But if it truly was a pink diamond, selling it made more sense. She needed the money. Her bank account was in the red, and she desperately required a more stable source of income to sustain both her good and bad habits. Do you have an appraiser in mind? She asked, trusting Pastor Frank as she always had. Of course. His shop is nearby. He's honest, and will ensure you get the gem's full value. He doesn't pay in cash, though. He sets up a bank account in your name and assigns a banker to manage your funds. Sounds like a great deal, doesn't it? Pastor Frank held his breath, waiting for her response. Rose had always been compliant with his suggestions, but this time was different. This time, there was a significant amount of money involved. She needed to remain unaware of the true origins of this fortune. Yes, I suppose it's a good plan if you're suggesting it, Uncle Frank. She smiled, placing her hands over his. Still, she couldn't shake the thought. Why did a pastor know so much about gems and appraisers? And why did it feel like he was too familiar with how these things worked? She kept her suspicions to herself. He was helping her after all. Pastor Frank stood. I should get going. Time waits for no man, and I have other stops to make. Thank you again, Uncle Frank. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't shown up today. No need to thank me, Rosie. I've been looking out for you since you were a baby, and that's not changing anytime soon. I'll text you the appraiser's address. Go there as soon as you receive it, okay? All right, I will. She walked him to the door. Before stepping out, he turned to her. Keep this to yourself, Rosie. You know how the world is when it comes to money. If this is a pink diamond, we're talking millions. Not a word. To anyone, not even your boyfriend. I know. I love my neck too much to take risks, she joked. Good. One more thing. Are you in a relationship right now? Her heart pounded. Why did he want to know? She had no desire to discuss her failed love life with Uncle Frank. Giorgio was a bad influence, a weight she knew she needed to shed. No, I haven't been in a relationship for a while, she lied. Pastor Frank resisted the urge to raise a brow. He knew everything about her life. It was his job, but she was unaware of that. Good. Keep it that way until this diamond business is settled. With that, he stepped out. Thanks again, Rose called after him. It's all right. Take care of yourself. As he walked down the street, his phone rang. He smirked at the name on the screen before answering. That was fast, he said. You really do have eyes everywhere, don't you? How did you know I was out? That's not for you to know, Frank. Update me, a deep voice commanded. Frank chuckled. The diamond is in place. Rose has it and will meet the appraiser soon. She took my advice seriously. You're arrogant, but you get results, the voice replied. Trust me, everything is under control. The only issue is her boyfriend, Giorgio. She's weak-willed when it comes to him. We wouldn't want him interfering. Then get rid of him. Consider it done. With that, the call abruptly ended. I'm Vincent, Pastor Frank's friend. Thank you for coming so quickly. Rest assured, everything will be arranged and delivered to you just as Igor promised, Vincent said, with a reassuring smile as he guided Rose toward the coffee shop exit. Across town, Pastor Frank was already in motion. Nothing could stand in the way of Rose and her happiness. It was what their employer wanted, after all. Rose might have believed that her good fortune was a result of mere luck or coincidence, but she was mistaken. Every step of her journey had been meticulously planned, from the orphanage to her schooling and scholarship. An entire network of individuals had worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure her every need, want, and desire was met. This was the effort of numerous employees, all following the orders of a wealthy man whose influence knew no bounds. Yet despite everything, Pastor Frank never understood why this man went to such lengths to remain in the shadows. After all, they were family. Distant, but still family. He placed a call to the next person responsible for steering Rose's life in the right direction. Giorgio was next. Giorgio was at a club, drunk, with an intoxicated woman on each arm grinding against him to the blaring music. His relationship status didn't matter. Rose was a bore, naive and predictable. Without him, she was lost, and he was certain she was sulking at home, waiting for his call. She would take him back, no matter what. She always did. As far as he was concerned, she was nothing more than a safety net, a fallback option. While he enjoyed himself like a reckless libertine, he wanted to take the party from the club to his bedroom, so he led the women outside into the chilly night air and toward the taxi he had called. Anticipation coursed through him at the thought of the night ahead. The drive felt endless, but eventually they arrived at his apartment building. Giorgio stepped out first, reaching back to help the women out, only to be stopped by a firm grip on his shoulder. The atmosphere around him shifted, thick with danger. Was he being robbed? And in such a public place? The grip tightened before he was suddenly shoved backward, stumbling and crashing onto the pavement. "Take these ladies home," the stranger instructed the taxi driver, handing him a wad of cash. Giorgio sat stunned, watching as the man approached. He was tall, his muscular frame evident beneath his black t-shirt and jeans. Tattoos snaked up both arms, peeking out from the collar of his shirt. Everything about him radiated menace. Scrambling to his feet, Giorgio stammered, What do you want?" "Is it money?" The man scoffed, lighting a cigarette and exhaling a plume of smoke directly into Giorgio's face. "Do I look like I need your money? You probably don't have much worth taking anyway." He took a slow drag before continuing. "My name is Igor. I'm sure you've heard of me." Every lowlife in Ottawa's underworld had heard of Igor. His reputation preceded him. A Russian drug dealer and one of the four kings who controlled most of the city's illicit dealings, he was feared above all for the chilling rumours about his pig farm, a place from which no one ever returned. The mere thought sent an ice-cold shiver down Giorgio's spine. Giorgio trembled like a leaf in a storm, his fear rising with every breath. "Ah, I see you know who I am." "That makes this easier," Igor said, his thick accent laced with amusement. I... Giorgio tried to speak, but failed miserably. "Relax, I'm not here to kill you. At least, not yet." Igor crouched slightly, his tone turning deadly. "Let me give you some advice. Stay away from Rose. If you value your life, you won't go near her again." "What? Rose? What does she have to do with—" Igor cut him off violently, his grip tightening around Giorgio's throat. "Gah!" Giorgio gasped, clawing at Igor's hand. "I hate repeating myself," Igor growled, his voice dangerously low. "But I'll do it this one time. Rose, your soon-to-be ex-girlfriend, is off limits. If I have to come back, I won't be this friendly." He took another slow drag of his cigarette, letting the smoke curl lazily from his lips into Giorgio's pale, stricken face. "No one who ignored my warnings has lived to talk about it," Igor added with a sharp grin. "Now, do you understand me?" Yes, sir." Giorgio nodded frantically, his drunken haze completely shattered. No woman was worth dying for, not like this. "You don't have to worry. I'll stay away." "Good boy." Igor smirked, delivering 2 light slaps to Giorgio's cheek before turning on his heel and walking away, leaving him trembling on the cold pavement. With Rose's newfound wealth came a shift in her lifestyle, her social circle evolving to match her new reality. She searched for Giorgio for weeks, unable to comprehend his sudden disappearance. Rumours suggested he was still in town, but no matter how hard she tried, he avoided her like the plague. Eventually, her focus shifted. The luxury, the experiences, the endless opportunities before her consumed her days and nights, just as her unseen benefactor had anticipated. She embraced the life she had unknowingly been groomed for, travelling the world and indulging in every adventure her heart desired. Hope you enjoyed this short story from The Unseen City, Salazar'S Touch Volume 1. I took great pleasure in writing these stories, and though riddled in fiction and creativity, I owe the city Ottawa for its inspiration and its disposition.